She doesn't wait for motivation, she builds discipline. Every day, whether she feels like it or not, she shows up. While the world scrolls and complains, she's grinding in silence. She understands that motivation is a fleeting emotion, but discipline, that's a lifelong companion. She ties her worth not to results, but to resilience. If she falls, she gets up. If she fails, she learns. And if they doubt her good, she'll use that as fuel. She knows her voice is her weapon. Not the loudest voice in the room, but the clearest, the calmest, the most controlled. She doesn't scream to be heard. She speaks with conviction, not volume. She's not afraid to say no, to set boundaries, to walk away from chaos, even when it comes dressed as opportunity. She doesn't need validation. Her standards are her validation. She guards her energy like it's gold, because it is. She doesn't entertain drama, distractions, or people who drain her. She's not cruel, she's clear. She doesn't try to fix people who refuse to fix themselves. She doesn't apologize for outgrowing environments that never wanted her to grow in the first place. That kind of protection of self, it's not selfish, it's essential. She never outsources her power. Her happiness, her purpose, her decisions, she owns them. She doesn't wait for someone to choose her. She chooses herself over and over again. When life pushes her to the edge, she doesn't scream, she recalibrates. Because she understands something most people don't. Emotions are messengers, not dictators. And strength is silent, not loud. She doesn't wake up waiting for inspiration to strike. She doesn't need a motivational quote, a morning playlist, or someone cheering her on. She's not fueled by hype. She's fueled by habit. While most people are still negotiating with their alarm clocks, she's already moving. Not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because she made a decision long ago. Discipline will take her where motivation never could. She knows motivation is like a guest. It visits, then it leaves. But discipline, that's a resident. It lives with you, it trains you, it sharpens you. She doesn't make excuses based on how she feels. Feelings are visitors. Discipline is commitment. She works when it's uncomfortable. She shows up when no one's watching. She trains herself to follow through, especially when no one would blame her for quitting. That's what separates her from the rest. Because while others are busy chasing dopamine, she's building consistency. She knows every rep, every task, every small decision done with intention is a brick. And brick by brick, she's building something unshakable. Not for the world's applause, but for her own evolution. She's not the loudest person in the room, and she doesn't need to be. She doesn't raise her voice to raise her value, because she's mastered something far more powerful: presence. When she speaks, people lean in. Not because she demands attention, but because she's earned respect. Her words aren't scattered. They're sharp, measured, intentional. She knows that silence can be louder than shouting, and timing can be more lethal than tone. She doesn't let emotion hijack her communication. She observes. She listens. Then she speaks, with precision. There's a strength in her restraint, a kind of confidence that doesn't need to overpower. It just exists. She doesn't explain herself to be understood. She doesn't talk over people to prove she's right. She lets her results speak. She lets her calm unsettle the chaos. And when the moment calls for it, she'll deliver a line so clean, so direct that it cuts through the noise like a blade. That's not arrogance. That's control. She's not trying to win the room. She is the room. And she understands one thing better than most: power is not in how loud you are. It's in how strategic you are when you speak. She's not available to everyone. And that's not rudeness, that's wisdom. She protects her energy like it's her most valuable asset, because it is. She's not trying to save people who don't want to be saved. She doesn't pour into cups that are full of holes. Her time, her peace, her presence. That's earned, not owed. She's not being cold, she's being clear. And clarity is a form of strength most people never develop. She doesn't get pulled into gossip, drama, or emotional chaos, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares about her purpose more. She knows every distraction comes at a cost. Every minute spent dealing with someone else's dysfunction is a minute stolen from her mission. So she draws the line, and when she does, she doesn't justify it. She doesn't explain it. She simply walks. Because she doesn't chase respect, she commands it through how she treats herself. She doesn't need to fix people. That's not her job. Her job is to stay aligned, to stay focused, to stay whole, and that means saying no, cutting ties, and sometimes standing alone. But she'd rather be alone with her peace than surrounded by noise that dims her light. People don't always understand that. But she doesn't need them to. She didn't come here to be understood. She came here to become unstoppable. She doesn't hand her power over to anyone, not to people, not to situations, not even to her past. She's not sitting around waiting for permission to feel worthy, loved, or successful. She doesn't need someone to tell her she's enough. She decided she was the day she stopped asking. Her confidence doesn't come from praise. It comes from self-trust. She's not chasing titles, likes, or approval. Because the moment you need someone else to validate your life, you've already given them control of it. She owns her choices, even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones. If it breaks her, she rebuilds. If it costs her, she pays. Because when she makes a decision, it's hers. She doesn't play the victim. She doesn't say, "They did this to me." No, she says, "What can I do with it?" That's the mindset that turns pain into power. That's the mindset that doesn't just survive, but leads. She's not waiting for someone to choose her. She chose herself. She woke up one day and realized no one is coming to save her. No one is coming to hand her the life she wants. So she got up. She showed up. And she never stopped. Because once you understand that you are your own backup plan, your own advocate, your own safety net, nobody can take that away from you. That kind of ownership. That's unshakable. That's power. You won't see her grind on display. You won't hear her complain. You won't witness the tears she sheds in private after the world tells her she's not enough. Because while everyone else is performing their struggle, she's preparing in silence. She's putting in reps when no one is watching. She's sacrificing comfort while others are chasing attention. That's the difference. She doesn't post her hustle, she lives it. And by the time they notice her, it's already too late. She's already built, already sharpened, already untouchable. She's not addicted to applause because she knows how empty it is. One day they love you. The next day they forget you. So she stopped trying to impress people who aren't even watching and started building a life that can't be shaken. No matter who's watching, she trains her mind, her discipline, her body, her standards, all in the dark. Because she knows the spotlight is no place to start preparing. That happens in the silence. That happens when nobody cares. That happens when it's just her in the mirror, and the choice to rise again. Every win she earns is rooted in the work no one clapped for. The early mornings, the quiet sacrifices, the relentless self-checks. That's the blueprint. That's what makes her dangerous. Not the show, not the image, but the quiet, consistent, brutal honesty she holds with herself when no one else is looking. That's where real power is forged. She's not ruled by emotion. She feels everything. Deeply. But you wouldn't know it unless she let you. And that's what makes her powerful. Because she's not suppressing her feelings. She's managing them, processing them, using them. She's not reactive, she's responsive. She doesn't explode when she's hurt, doesn't fold when she's scared, and doesn't lash out when she's angry. She pauses, she assesses, she decides. That moment of silence between trigger and response. That's where her power lies. That's what separates her from the ones who constantly find themselves apologizing for their outbursts or explaining away poor decisions. She understands that emotions are data, not direction, signals, not commands. When she's angry, she doesn't erupt. She investigates what boundary was crossed, what value was violated. When she's anxious, she doesn't spiral. She grounds herself. What's real, what's projection? And when she's sad, she doesn't numb it. She honors it. She lets it teach her, not control her. She knows emotions have intelligence, but they don't have authority. They're messengers, not leaders. And because she listens to them without letting them lead, she never loses control of the moment. That's not something she was born knowing. She trained for it, through experience, through failure, through moments when she said the wrong thing, trusted the wrong person, broke down at the wrong time. But instead of blaming the world, she took responsibility. She looked at herself and said, "You're allowed to feel everything, but you're not allowed to let those feelings run the show." So she started building internal systems. A code, a practice. She read, she observed, She rewired how she reacts, because being emotionally strong doesn't mean being cold. It means being in command of your inner world, especially when your outer world is chaos. She's walked through situations that would have emotionally shattered someone else. Betrayals, disappointments, setups, and yet, she never let those moments break her character. She felt the sting, but she didn't let it define her. She processed the pain, but she didn't weaponize it. Because she knows something most people don't do. If someone else can control your emotional state, they control you. And no one gets that kind of access unless they've earned it. So she created a standard, not just for how others treat her, but for how she responds to them. That doesn't mean she's always calm. It means she's always intentional. She knows when to speak and when to walk away, when to correct and when to let silence carry the message, when to fight and when to fall back, because her goal isn't to win arguments. It's to maintain peace. Her peace. She doesn't need to prove she's right to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She doesn't waste energy arguing with chaos. That's emotional mastery. Not reacting to every trigger. Not bleeding in front of people who would use your pain against you. That's her armor. Not coldness, not distance, but control. She's had people test her, push her, try to destabilize her. She's been in rooms where she was underestimated, challenged, provoked. And in those rooms she never lost herself. She didn't meet fire with fire. She met it with clarity. She didn't take the bait, didn't give them the satisfaction of watching her unravel. Instead, she got sharper, quieter, stronger, because she knows the more powerful the woman, the less she needs to prove it. She'll cut through your chaos with a single sentence, and then walk away untouched. That kind of presence, that's not luck. That's discipline. When she's in pain, she doesn't make permanent decisions from temporary feelings. She doesn't text in anger, doesn't quit in fear, doesn't isolate in sadness. She sits with herself first. She regulates. She asks the hard questions. Is this real? Is this old trauma showing up in a new disguise? Am I reacting to this person, or to something unresolved inside of me? That kind of self-awareness. It's not cute. It's brutal. But she does the work, because she'd rather confront her pain in private than bleed it out in public. She's not afraid to cry, but she cries with purpose. She doesn't let her tears drown her. She lets them clear the vision, reset the system. She doesn't deny her emotional world. She integrates it. Because she understands that your emotions can be your ally or your enemy, depending on how well you know them. And she's made it her mission to know herself. Fully, fiercely, without flinching. That's what makes her dangerous. Not the fact that she feels deeply, but that she can feel deeply and still make razor-sharp decisions. She's not emotionally bulletproof. She just knows how to shield her internal state from the external noise. She's felt heartbreak, but didn't let it close her. She's faced betrayal, but didn't let it harden her. She's experienced loss, but didn't let it define her. And that's what emotional mastery looks like. Not being numb, but being resilient. Not being detached, but being in control. She studies herself like a subject, tracks her triggers, maps her patterns. Where do I lose control? Why does this person affect me so much? What am I still holding on to that I need to release? She doesn't lie to herself. She doesn't pretend to be healed when she's bleeding. She faces her emotional wounds head on. Because she knows if you avoid it, it owns you. If you confront it, you reclaim it. And she's done playing small for the comfort of emotional avoidance. She doesn't numb with distractions. She doesn't run to food, alcohol, gossip, or mindless scrolling to escape discomfort. She sits in it, breathes through it, learns from it, because she knows emotional pain is data. It's trying to tell her something, and if she silences it with noise, she loses the lesson. So she creates space. For grief, for reflection, for stillness. That's where she does her deepest work. Not in the presence of people, but in the presence of herself. People often mistake her calm for weakness. But it's the opposite. That calm, that's earned. That's forged. That's the result of years of emotional battles fought and won. She doesn't get rattled by pettiness. She doesn't chase closure from people who refuse to be accountable. She doesn't give explanations to people who haven't earned her vulnerability. That's not arrogance. That's protection. That's self-respect. She doesn't absorb other people's projections. Someone calls her too much. She knows that's a reflection of their own limitation. Someone says she's cold. She knows they've mistaken boundaries for bitterness. Someone accuses her of changing. She smiles, because growth will always look like rebellion to those who stayed the same. She doesn't take it personally, because she knows how people treat you is a mirror of their relationship with themselves, and she refuses to internalize what isn't hers. She responds not to control others, but to protect herself. She doesn't need the last word. She needs peace. She doesn't need revenge. She needs alignment. That's emotional power. Not getting even, but getting clear. Not retaliating, but rising. She moves with grace even when she's disrespected, because she knows exactly who she is, and more importantly, who she refuses to become in response to someone else's dysfunction. She's trained herself to pause, to ask, is this worth my energy? Is this person emotionally safe? Is this situation aligned with who I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, she disengages, with no anger, no drama, just detachment. She doesn't attend every argument she's invited to. That's beneath her, because she's not interested in being right. She's interested in being free. She practices emotional hygiene daily. She checks in, regulates, processes, reframes. She doesn't let emotions sit and rot. She moves them through her body, her breath, her journal, her discipline. She doesn't allow unprocessed pain to turn into personality traits. She doesn't weaponize her past. She heals it, and that healing becomes her compass. That pain becomes her wisdom. That emotional discipline becomes her edge. And when the world tries to tell her she's too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, she doesn't shrink. She doesn't harden. She doesn't explain. She just keeps walking, eyes forward, spine straight, because she knows emotional strength isn't about being less. It's about owning more depth, more awareness, more truth. And if that makes people uncomfortable, so be it. She didn't come here to make people comfortable. She came here to lead herself, fully, fiercely, unapologetically. She never traded in her femininity to fit into someone else's version of power. She never believed the lie that softness is weakness, or that she had to act like a man to be respected in a man's world. She learned to lead with her intuition, to trust her instincts, to use her empathy as an advantage, not a liability. Because what they don't tell you is this: there's a power in being calm, poised, emotionally attuned, and it's often more lethal than brute force. She walks into a room, and she doesn't need to dominate it. She reads it. She feels the temperature before she speaks. She can sense the tension, the power dynamics, the deception, because she's tuned in. That's not some mystical gift. That's pattern recognition. That's emotional intelligence. That's a woman who knows that presence isn't about being loud. It's about being undeniable. And that presence is born from her embracing every piece of herself, especially the parts the world told her to suppress. She doesn't dim her light to be palatable. She doesn't act less capable so others feel more comfortable. She doesn't shrink herself to avoid being labeled too emotional, too intense, too ambitious. She's learned to carry both fire and grace in the same sentence. She can correct you without raising her voice. She can walk away without making a scene. And when necessary, she can drop a truth so sharp it cuts through the room. And do it with a smile. That's power, not performative, not aggressive, just real, controlled, rooted. She understands the strength it takes to be soft in a hard world. The courage it takes to care when it would be easier to detach. The intelligence it takes to lead with compassion without being taken advantage of. That balance, of steel and soul, that's what makes her unstoppable. Because she's not trying to be anyone else. She's fully herself, and that authenticity disarms people more than any title or accolade ever could. She knows her voice doesn't need to echo like thunder to shake the ground. She can whisper and move mountains. She can stay still and still intimidate. Because her power isn't about noise. It's about knowing. She knows who she is. She knows what she's capable of. And she knows how to move strategically in a world that still hasn't figured out how to handle a woman who's both fierce and feminine. She doesn't apologize for being nurturing, emotional, creative, or intuitive. These aren't distractions from her strength. They are her strength. The ability to read people, anticipate conflict, de-escalate tension, inspire loyalty. These are not accidents, they are skills, and she uses them like tools in her arsenal. Tools most people overlook until they realize she's already 5 steps ahead. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her presence speaks, her silence speaks, her decisions speak. And when she does speak, it's with a weight that demands attention. Not because she's trying to be powerful, but because she already is. She's not mimicking masculine energy, she's mastering her own. People often misjudge her because they expect strength to come in one form: loud, hard, aggressive. But hers is quiet, precise, strategic. She doesn't need to prove anything. Her life is the proof. Her calm is the proof. Her ability to remain soft while walking through fire. That's the ultimate flex. Because anyone can be tough when they're angry. Anyone can be cold when they're hurt. But to stay open, to stay kind, to stay poised, that takes mastery. She's not afraid to wear heels into a boardroom or tears on her sleeve when the moment calls for it. Because she knows both are part of her arsenal. She knows there's strength in vulnerability and strategy in intuition. She's not playing by their rules. She's rewriting them, without asking for permission. She's the woman who doesn't flinch under pressure. Who doesn't trade her authenticity for approval. Who doesn't hide her femininity to gain respect. And because of that, she gets what few ever do: the ability to lead without losing herself. The ability to influence without imitating. The ability to rise without compromise. She doesn't fear being alone. In fact, she seeks it. Because in a world that constantly tells women to be available, responsive, likable, and connected, she's made peace with the quiet. She understands that solitude isn't emptiness. It's elevation. It's where the distractions die off. It's where clarity rises. When others are busy filling every moment with noise, people, and pointless scrolling, she's carving out space to think, to feel, to sharpen herself. That's not loneliness. That's discipline. She doesn't need constant validation. She doesn't panic when the phone is silent or when the invitations stop. She knows isolation is often the gateway to transformation. She's not afraid to disconnect because she knows real power doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from within. She doesn't run from her own thoughts. She confronts them. She questions them. She shapes them. She's not dependent on external voices to tell her who she is. She already knows. That kind of confidence. It's not built in the spotlight. It's built in silence. People ask her how she stays grounded, how she stays focused, how she always seems to know exactly what to do. The answer is simple: she listens to herself. She makes space to hear her own intuition over the noise of opinions. She's not addicted to groupthink. She doesn't look for consensus before she makes a move. She gets still. She reflects. She lets the world talk while she studies, plans, strengthens. That inner stillness, it's a power most people will never touch, because they're too afraid to sit with themselves. She's not constantly available, and she's unapologetic about that. Her solitude is sacred. It's where she recharges, resets, and reconnects to her mission. While others burn out trying to be everywhere for everyone, she protects her center like her life depends on it. Because it does. That's how she remains clear when others get lost. That's how she stays anchored while the world is spinning. She's had moments where the silence was loud, where the solitude felt uncomfortable. But instead of escaping it, she leaned in. She learned that the discomfort wasn't a punishment, it was a teacher. It showed her who she was without the titles, without the roles, without the noise. It revealed the truth she had been too busy to hear. And once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. She didn't need to belong to everything. She didn't need to explain her silence. She just needed to trust it. People don't always understand her need for space. They call her distant, cold, mysterious. Let them. She's not here to be understood. She's here to be effective. And effectiveness demands clarity. Clarity demands stillness. Stillness demands solitude. It's not isolation. It's intentional disconnection from the chaos that keeps most people stuck in loops they don't even realize they're in. She's not afraid to miss out, because she's not missing anything that compromises her peace. She doesn't chase events, attention, or conversations that don't serve her growth. She knows solitude gives her perspective. It sharpens her instincts. It keeps her focused on the bigger picture while others are distracted by the moment. That's not selfish. That's strategy. In her solitude, she's built mental armor. She's dissected her fears. She's confronted her self-doubt. She's dismantled beliefs that were never hers to begin with. She's rewritten her identity, not based on who the world told her to be, but based on who she chooses to become. And that kind of identity, the one forged in quiet, deliberate solitude, it doesn't shake when the world starts screaming. It stays still, it stays sharp, it stays her. She doesn't chase perfection because she knows it's a trap. A beautifully packaged lie designed to keep her small. She's not here to be flawless. She's here to be real. She's not afraid to look like a beginner, to make mistakes, to mess up in front of people. That fear? That's what paralyzes most. But not her. She's traded perfection for progress. Every stumble, every awkward attempt, every moment she wanted to disappear but didn't. That's where her power was built. Not in being polished, but in being persistent. She doesn't care if it looks messy. She cares that it moves forward. While others waste time trying to look like they have it all together, she's busy evolving. She shows up to the gym in doubt. She walks into meetings with nerves. She has hard conversations while her hands are shaking. And you know what? She does it anyway, because she knows that action in the face of fear is what builds confidence. Not waiting until it's perfect. Not waiting until she's ready. Just moving, deciding. Adjusting as she goes. She's failed, spectacularly. She's embarrassed herself. She's launched things that didn't work, trusted people who betrayed her, tried things that went nowhere. But here's the difference: she didn't quit. She didn't let failure become her identity. She didn't let the fall convince her that she didn't belong. She got back up, every time, and said, "All right, what's next?" That's grit. That's resilience. That's why she wins. Not because she avoids mistakes, but because she refuses to be defined by them. She knows perfection is a weapon used against women to keep them from taking up space. Say the right thing, look the right way, act the right part. She rejected all of it, because she knows that chasing perfection is just fear dressed in productivity, and she has no time for fear. She has a mission, a standard, a calling, and that mission isn't about being admired. It's about being effective. That standard isn't about looking good. It's about being good. That calling, it's not about being liked. It's about being necessary. She doesn't get stuck replaying what went wrong. She studies it, breaks it down, learns, then moves forward. While others are frozen by self-doubt, she's busy collecting data. Every mistake, a blueprint. Every setback, a redirection. She doesn't punish herself for not being perfect. She trains herself to get better. And that mindset, that's her superpower. She doesn't wear shame when she fails. She wears experience. Because nothing teaches like reality. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, attend all the seminars, but nothing compares to being in the arena, to taking the risk, to putting your name on something and watching it fall apart, then building it again anyway. That's her edge. She's not scared of failing. She's scared of not growing. She shows up imperfect and unpolished because that's where authenticity lives. She's not faking it. She's figuring it out in real time. She's owning her pace, her rhythm, her journey. She's not trying to keep up with someone else's timeline or curated life. She's too focused on mastering her own. And she knows every great woman who came before her didn't get there by being perfect. She got there by being relentless. That's what people don't see. They see the outcome, not the process. They admire the finish line but ignore the brutal, beautiful path it took to get there. She hasn't just accepted the process. She's fallen in love with it, with the grind, with the setbacks, with the silent wins, because she knows greatness is built in repetition, not recognition. And the woman who can keep moving forward while imperfect, that woman is unstoppable. She never forgets who she is, no matter how loud the world tries to tell her otherwise. And make no mistake, it tries every single day. It tells her to tone it down, to play it safe, to be easier to digest. It labels her too intense, too ambitious, too emotional, too much. But she doesn't flinch. She doesn't shrink. Because she knows herself, and she's not negotiating her identity to fit someone else's comfort zone. She's spent too long becoming this version of herself to hand it over for acceptance. She's been underestimated, misread, and misunderstood. People have tried to put her in boxes she never belonged in, tried to define her by their limited view of her. But she doesn't live in boxes. She breaks them, because she's not someone's version of a woman, she's her own. And that identity, it's not built on titles, roles, or validation. It's built on values, on choices, on actions that align with who she says she is, not who others expect her to be. There have been moments where she questioned herself, moments when the noise was so loud, the pressure so strong that even she started to ask, am I too much? But then she remembered, those voices weren't hers. They were echoes of a world that's still uncomfortable with a woman who refuses to be small. So she silenced the noise. She reconnected to her truth. She stood her ground, because when you know who you are, the opinions of others become background static. She's not chasing an identity, she's anchored in it. She doesn't need people to agree with her to know she's right for her own path. She doesn't need to be liked to feel powerful. Her self-respect isn't negotiable. Her dignity isn't for sale. She walks into rooms fully herself, no mask, no filter, and if that's too much, she's okay with that, because she'd rather be too much than not enough for the life she was born to live. She remembers who she is in silence, in pain, in triumph. She remembers when she's winning, and especially when she's losing. That's the test, not who you are when things are easy, but who you remain when everything's falling apart. And she's passed that test more than once. She's lost people, opportunities, support, and still, she didn't lose herself. That's a woman no storm can break. She refuses to become the watered, down version of herself that others prefer. She won't edit her power to be more palatable. She doesn't exist to make others comfortable with her strength. She exists to fulfill her own potential, and that requires boldness. That requires authenticity. That requires remembering, every single day, I didn't come this far to forget who I am. She walks like she knows something most people forgot. Because she does. She knows that identity is not given, it's claimed. It's carved out in adversity, refined in solitude, and protected with boundaries. She's claimed hers. And because of that, she's unshakable, not perfect, not invincible, but clear, solid, whole. The world will keep trying to define her, to limit her, to soften her edges. But she's not here to be defined, she's here to redefine, to rewrite what strength looks like, to show that you can be both powerful and vulnerable, fierce and kind, relentless and soft. She's not picking sides. She's standing in the center of all of it, fully, unapologetically herself. Because the most dangerous thing a woman can ever be is everything she already is. So now you know, this isn't about luck or timing or being chosen. It's about choosing yourself over and over again. It's about owning your voice, guarding your energy, and standing in your truth even when it shakes. It's about doing the hard things quietly, healing intentionally, and refusing to trade your authenticity for approval. Every successful woman you admire didn't get there by following the rules. She got there by breaking the ones that tried to break her. And now it's your turn. You're not too much. You're not too late. You're not behind. You are becoming. And the moment you stop waiting for permission and start walking in your power, that's the moment everything changes. So hold the line, raise the standard, and never, ever forget who you are, because the world will keep trying to redefine you. Don't let it. Define yourself. Then go live like you mean it.